I have recently spent a considerable amount of time playing Dead Island 2, and I must say that I'm quite impressed with it. From the second I loaded into the game, I have had an absolute blast. It manages to build on the previous titles by introducing new and fresh ideas that expand the IP further while also retaining a sense of familiarity. When it comes to the combat, the melee system has never felt better, and it's still the main focus of this game. Dead Island 2 is just designed to achieve satisfying, brutal, and gory combat moments, which are best achieved through hand-to-hand combat. The gore system and the brutality behind it is quite remarkable. The system that's being showcased here is honestly every zombie fan's dream. I do want to confidently say that longtime fans of the Dead Island franchise, Dead Island 2 is a must-have for you. It delivers everything that you would expect from a Dead Island game, for better or worse. I mean, you know the deal by now. You know the strings that come attached to a Dead Island game. Story? What story? However, for newcomers, I suggest you don't jump the gun just yet. There are some important things that I think you should know about before going ahead and purchasing it. And the best way to do that is to break down the typical Dead Island 2 experience into two different sections. Story, with no spoilers of course, and then gameplay. These are the two pillars we definitely need to talk about so you can set your expectations accordingly. And with that said, let's begin with the story. Dead Island 2, it knows exactly what it wants to be, and it kind of fully embraces it. It opts in for the goofy vibe that shouldn't be taken too seriously. The dialogue and character interactions, they reflect that properly. The writing almost seems intentionally cheesy, but it works well with the game's identity. Dead Island 2 knows its place, so they hammer in on it instead of trying to be something else with clashing or different identities. And because of that, the story is kind of put on the back burner. It's not really the main focus of Dead Island here. The story takes you on a journey of quests that offer up satisfying gameplay moments one after the other, ensuring that you're always engaged. It would rather put the player into entertaining situations through gameplay rather than being motivated by a compelling plot. So during the game, you progress in a very linear fashion, moving from location to location, set piece to set piece, but while you're doing so, Dead Island 2 just wants you to have fun with it. Before the game was released, developers stated that they wanted to put the player into circumstances where they were fighting as often as possible, and they definitely achieved that here. And despite not being an open world game, the area that the story takes you to are just meant to be explored. It actively encourages you to veer off the path and get lost in what it has to offer. They want you to do side quests. You want to do the side quests because they successfully rope you in, and they're actually quite compelling. And once you start trailing off the path, that's where the environment and the world building that Dambuster did truly shines through. Looking at the interiors and the level of detail here, it's impressively done and it's quite delightful. I was honestly on the fence about it not being open world, but I'm especially pleased with the creative decision to opt for smaller districts now that I've seen it in action. Dambuster really went above and beyond to show a living and breathing version of LA. They were really able to capture the diversity, the random craze, and unique weirdness that is the West Coast. It was quite surprising to me. California is filled with all sorts of characters, influencers, celebrities, and they were constantly finding opportunities to poke fun at them. Like there's one side quest where you need to help film a girl's YouTube video, and there's a lot of gags and meta jokes to some of the ridiculous things that happen in our online communities. And even beyond that, just constantly throughout Dead Island's LA, there are little jokes and goofs always trying to get a chuckle out of you. And because of that, I really do think that they nailed the setting here. I do have to say too, the game does eventually open up, and I'm overall dazzled with what I played so far. One thing I'll also mention is that the story, it kind of has you go into the same areas at times. You will frequently revisit locations as you progress further. But honestly, that's not my biggest issue with the story section. It actually comes from the 6 different Slayers. So we know about these guys. These are the main characters. Each one has their own personalities, their traits, abilities, and jokes. You get to go ahead and choose the one that you resonate the most with at the beginning of the game. I chose Ryan. Why? I like male strippers. And during cutscenes, every single Slayer has different reactions and dialogue. So a cutscene with Ryan would be very different than a cutscene compared to Amy. However, for some of them, the dialogue actually comes off as pretty awkward. The conversations, they feel a little forced, they're one-sided, not in your favor, leading it to feel very unnatural. It doesn't seem to matter what your slayer says during these conversations. It's very odd and makes you feel out of character because your slayer is forced to say certain things to move the conversation forward. Or better yet, your slayer will say something and it gets ignored because plot needs to move forward. The best comparison that I could give, it's like when you're playing games with your younger brother, you give the controller to him to join in and play with you and have fun, but it's unplugged. Even though he's there, playing, he's engaged, his overall presence isn't doing much. The game is still going on regardless of what he's saying or doing. However, I will say that's mainly with the story missions. For some reason, when it comes to the side quest, it's actually fine and pretty natural. No complaints there. But to be quite frank, the story is not the main reason you're going to be playing this. If you're going into this expecting a cinematic experience with fully fleshed out themes and messages, you're not getting that here. The story just serves as a road for you to walk on, to put you into entertaining gameplay moments. My Dead Island fans, you already understand this. It's exactly how the originals were. But when it comes to gameplay, I'm actually blown away by how incredibly satisfying it feels. Every hit connects and feels incredibly fulfilling. And it really is the definition of stupid, dumb, mindless fun. But the thing is, it's not going to resonate with many players' preferences. Many might be expecting more than what Dead Island 2 has to offer. It takes a certain group of players to be okay with just slashing zombies in creative and unique ways over and over for 20 to 30 hours. This could get repetitive for some people and it won't be a fun time for them, especially at a price point that this game is at. I mean, games are getting pretty expensive right now, and if anything of what I'm saying is turning you off, you might be best just waiting for a sale for this. But if what I'm babbling on about, if this really piques your interest, you're definitely going to enjoy it. One of my biggest criticisms from my early access time with this game was that the combat and the gameplay is slowed down and a lot more tactical than I thought it would be. You need to properly plan your attacks, take your time, and this is still primarily true, but there are certain weapons that will speak to the playstyle of a fast-paced action. Different skill cards and weapon modifications can increase attack speed, but the weapons as a whole, the swinging and the weighting to them, it doesn't make sense. For example, weapons that you think would be fast swinging aren't, and then vice versa. And when I happened to play during my early access demo, they literally gave us an arsenal of these slow-handed weapons. So that's what I had to base my opinion off of. I also pointed out some issues with the gunplay, and unfortunately, it still feels the same to me. It's a little bit better, still serviceable. It does not try to do anything special. Still feels to me like an afterthought just to have guns in the game. Kind of just feels like they added it in to have a little competitive edge over some of their competition. The main focus is melee. That's where you're going to get all of your enjoyment from. To pair that alongside the gore system, it's a wet dream for zombie fans. And on top of this, I do have to say I have been playing primarily in co-op, and I truly think that that is the intended way for a game like this to be played. It's very much turn your brain off, invite a friend, kill some zombies, and have fun. When it comes to online performance and bugs, there's a little bit of jank. There's that classic Dead Island jank a little bit in here. It's nothing like Dying Light 2 on launch. You can play co-op from day one and not run into 100 bugs in online play sessions. There are a little bit of audio bugs, zombies T-posing, co-op characters moonwalking around, but it's nothing game-breaking at all. I'm really at a loss of words that a game like this that was in development hell for so long, released in a great state like this in what is modern day gaming now, where the norm is just games are broken on release. The optimization in Dead Island 2, it's exceptional. The game runs pretty flawlessly on my system right now. And checking in with a lot of my community members, a lot of you in the comments and also on Discord, you also agree that the game is running very well for you. What it's outputting to on last-gen consoles is relatively good for 10-year-old hardware. But to end, I'm a major zombie fan. I love brutal melee combat, and everything I wanted to see in a gameplay-focused zombie game, that's exactly what I got here. So I think it's worth it. Those are my preferences. I kind of know what the expectations are when it comes to games like this, and honestly, they were pretty low, and I have to say it did over-deliver on some of the portions that I really cared for. On the spots I knew it was going to underperform, aka the story, that's exactly what happened. My expectations for meeting a compelling story were severely low. However, I do think it would be the perfect on-sale game for everybody else. I'm gonna say, a majority of my fan base they're from Dying Light 2, and you're gonna resonate with this game. But people that are kinda on the fence, if you're okay with 20 to 30 hours of pure fun gameplay that may get a little bit repetitive as time goes on, if you're okay with that, then by all means, grab the game. And honestly, that's what I have to say right now about the typical Dead Island 2 experience. I'm going to be having a fully fleshed out review on the channel very soon. We'll go over basically every aspect. This was just to go and give you a general idea about the game right now. And with all that said, I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.